a river that boils animals alive, 400 miles from the nearest volcano, a forest where every tree grows in a perfect J shape, and a massive blue eye staring back at us from space. Our planet is full of glitches that science simply cannot explain. Satellites in orbit can read the license plates on your car, and our phones know every inch of every continent. But when you scratch just a little beneath the surface of that perfect digital map, you start finding glitches in the system. Across the globe, there are locations that seemingly defy the laws of physics, biology, and geology. Scientists have spent decades trying to decode these cartographic anomalies, but to this day, nobody has a complete answer. Today, we are leaving the known world behind. We are exploring the 15 most mysterious places on the world map that no one can fully explain. 1. The Eye of the Sahara, Mauritania. Our first location sits deep within the unforgiving desert of West Africa. On an ordinary map of Mauritania, it looks like nothing at all. But from space, it becomes one of the strangest sights on Earth. A gigantic circular formation nearly 25 miles wide, staring back from the Sahara like a massive eye. Known as the Risha structure, this formation was believed for decades to be a meteor impact crater. However, detailed analyses found absolutely no traces of extraterrestrial rock or extreme heat melting. Geologists now believe it is the result of deep erosion over millions of years, but no one can explain how that erosion formed almost flawlessly symmetrical, circular shape in the middle of a completely empty desert. 2. The Mapimi Silent Zone, Mexico. We shift the map west to the arid Mapimi Desert in northern Mexico. On paper, it looks like just another empty stretch of harsh desert. But over the years, this remote region has gained a far stranger reputation. It became known as the Zone of Silence, a place surrounded by stories of failing radios, strange atmospheric interference, and navigation problems that seem to appear without warning. The legend only grew stronger in 1970, when a US test missile went off course and came down in this part of the desert, fueling rumors that something about the area itself was interfering with its path. Some have pointed to unusual mineral deposits. Others blame magnetic anomalies. But to this day, the Zone of Silence remains suspended between science and legend. One of those places where the facts are real enough to exist, and the mystery has only grown darker with time. 3. The Boiling River, Peru. Hidden deep within the Amazon rainforest of Peru lies Timpishka, a river that literally boils. The water in this river reaches temperatures of up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and any animal that accidentally falls in is boiled alive in a matter of seconds. What makes this river an absolute scientific mystery is its geography. Geothermal rivers always exist exclusively near active volcanoes. However, the closest active volcano is over 400 miles away from this spot on the map. Scientists believe the river is heated by deep geothermal fractures beneath the surface, but exactly how that heat rises here with such intensity, and over such a long stretch of river cutting through the jungle, remains part of what makes it so extraordinary.
Here's the boiling river. I wish I had something to throw in to see how hot it is. I'm gonna stick my finger in there. Oh yeah, it's not boiling, but I can put my finger in there just for a minute. If you fell in, it would be horrible, horrible, horrible thing to happen to you.
4. The Taos Hum, New Mexico, USA. For our first American anomaly, we travel to the desert town of Taos, New Mexico. Since the early 1990s, a number of residents here have reported hearing a persistent, low-frequency hum, often compared to the sound of a distant diesel engine idling somewhere beyond the horizon. What makes the phenomenon so unsettling is how selective it seems to be. Only a small percentage of people in the area claim to hear it, while many others hear nothing at all. Investigators have spent years trying to identify the source, exploring everything from mechanical noise and atmospheric effects to hearing-related conditions. Yet no single explanation has ever fully resolved the mystery. Whether the Taos hum is caused by a rare acoustic phenomenon, something environmental, or something else entirely, it remains one of America's strangest unsolved sound mysteries.
It ruins people's lives because they can never get away from the sound. All day, all the time, in your ears, in your head. Some people have been driven to suicide because of the Tow's hum. It really does affect the patients really badly.
5. The Gates of Hell, Turkmenistan. Right in the middle of the Karakum Desert in Turkmenistan sits the Darvaza gas crater. Locals simply call it the Gates of Hell. It is a massive hole in the earth, 230 feet wide, that has been violently burning for decades. When the ground collapsed during a Soviet drilling operation in 1971, engineers decided to set the escaping gas on fire to prevent toxic fumes from spreading. They thought the fire would burn out in a few weeks. More than half a century has passed, and the crater is still burning. What puzzles scientists is the massive, unyielding volume of gas that defies all reservoir estimates.
One of the most appealing and frustrating things about this crater is that there really isn't a whole lot of information about it. And even while I was in the country, I met with 2 local Turkmen geologists. Well, the geologists in Turkmenistan, they tell me a different story. They say that the crater actually formed in the late 1960s and was gurgling with gas and mud for quite a few years and wasn't actually ignited until the 1980s.
6. Lake Hillier, Australia. On the edge of Middle Island, in Western Australia, lies a lake that looks as if someone painted it bubblegum pink. Lake Hillier is one of the most surreal bodies of water on Earth, famous for its striking color, which often appears vivid, even when viewed up close. Unlike many pink lakes whose appearance can shift with light, season, or salt levels, Hillier has become famous for holding onto its unusual color with remarkable consistency. Scientists believe salt-loving microorganisms, including algae and bacteria, are behind the phenomenon. But even with those clues, the lake still feels almost unnatural. A bright pink pool set against the deep blue ocean, as if part of the landscape was colored by something not entirely of this world. 7. The Crooked Forest, Poland. Near the town of Gryfino in Poland stands one of the strangest forests in Europe. In a small patch of woodland, around 400 pine trees grow with the same eerie deformity. Near the base, each trunk curves sharply in one direction before bending back upward and continuing toward the sky. The trees were planted in the 1930s, and despite decades of speculation, no one knows for certain why this grove developed in such a bizarrely uniform way. The most common theory is that human hands deliberately shaped them while they were young, possibly for timber or shipbuilding. But no records have ever fully confirmed that explanation. And that is what makes the Crooked Forest so unsettling. It does not look like an accident of nature, yet it does not come with a clear human story either.
It'd be a very eerie place. I'd love to come here early in the morning when there's no one around, so you can hear the silence. I don't know if you can hear that off in the distance, but that big industrial factory thing over there, there's a drill going off.
8. Kelimutu Volcanic Lakes, Indonesia. On the map of Indonesia, at the very peak of the Kelimutu volcano, sit 3 crater lakes resting side by side. All 3 share the exact same volcanic source, yet each of them boasts a completely different color, which changes constantly and unpredictably. One lake might be turquoise blue, the second black, and the third blood red. A few months later, the colors might change to green, brown, and white. Scientists believe the changes are driven by volcanic gases and chemical reactions in the water, but the ever-shifting colors still give the lakes an almost supernatural presence. 3 neighboring pools that can look as though they belong to 3 different worlds. 9. Ringing Rocks Park, Pennsylvania, USA. Our second American anomaly brings us to the dense woods of Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Hidden here is a barren field of massive boulders, unlike almost any other in the world. Strike some of these rocks with a hammer, and instead of a dull thud, they ring out with a strange metallic tone, almost like iron. Even stranger, not every rock in the field responds the same way. Some ring clearly, while others sitting right beside them remain silent. The boulders appear similar in origin and composition, yet only certain ones resonate with that eerie bell-like sound. Researchers believe the effect may come from a rare combination of internal stress, shape, and the way the rocks are positioned. But no single explanation fully captures why this field sounds the way it does. That is what makes ringing rocks so unsettling. It is not just a pile of stones, but a landscape that seems to hum with its own hidden logic.
I've read that it is one of a kind place. Nowhere else you'll find rocks which ring, so it's almost like a miracle.
I like banging the rocks, and I like climbing and jumping the rocks.
10. Fairy Circles, Namibia. If you look at satellite maps of the Namib Desert in Africa, you will see millions of perfectly circular patches where absolutely nothing grows, surrounded by tall grass. These fairy circles cover thousands of miles and look as if someone placed a giant polka dot carpet over the map. Some circles reach up to 50 feet in diameter and can last for decades before mysteriously vanishing and reappearing somewhere else. Scientists have proposed several explanations, including termites, underground moisture patterns, and intense competition between plants for water. But no single theory has ended the debate completely. And that is what makes the fairy circles so unsettling. The desert is drawing the same shape again and again, and we still do not fully know why. 11. The Dragon's Triangle, Japan. Most people have heard of the Bermuda Triangle, but in the Pacific, south of Japan, there is another stretch of water with an equally dark reputation. It is known as the Dragon's Triangle, sometimes called Japan's own Bermuda Triangle. Over the years, this region became associated with stories of lost vessels, violent seas, and unexplained danger, blurring the line between documented hazards and maritime legend. Its reputation grew even darker in the 1950s, when the Japanese research vessel Kayomaru No. 5 was lost while investigating volcanic activity in the area. Scientists point to the region's unstable undersea geology, submarine volcanoes, and unpredictable waters as possible explanations. But even with those clues, the Dragon's Triangle remains one of the most unsettling places in the Pacific, a place where the ocean feels less like open water and more like a warning. 12. Mount Roraima, Venezuela. At the border of Venezuela, Brazil, and Guyana, rises a mountain that looks as if the top of the world was sliced clean away. Mount Roraima is a vast tabletop mountain, surrounded by towering cliffs that make its summit feel almost unreachable. Because of that extreme isolation, the world above has evolved in ways that seem almost unreal. Strange plants, rare animals, and species found nowhere else on Earth survive on its mist-covered plateau, cut off for ages from the forests below.
They are potentially much older. Whereas the Galapagos may be 5 million years old at most, the Tepuis could be in the 40s to 50s millions of years. And this little gal and her friends on Tepui summits may give us the answer to how long they've been isolated.
Scientists see Mount Roraima as one of the most remarkable natural islands in the sky. But standing at the edge of those cliffs, it is easy to understand why this mountain has inspired legends for generations. It does not feel like part of the ordinary world. 13. Yonaguni Monument, Japan. Off the coast of Yonaguni Island, beneath the waters of the Pacific, lies one of the most controversial underwater formations on Earth. Rising from the seafloor is a massive stone structure of flat surfaces, sharp edges, and giant step-like terraces, so geometric in appearance that many people who see it for the first time are convinced it must have been shaped by human hands. That is where the mystery begins. Some researchers and divers believe Yonaguni could be the remains of a lost monument or ancient ceremonial site submerged long ago. Others argue that it is a natural formation, carved over time by fractures, currents, and erosion acting on the rock. And that debate is exactly what makes Yonaguni so unsettling. It looks just artificial enough to keep the question alive.
35、6年前ダイビングポイントを開拓中に偶然にも探したんですよ。見つかった時にはね、興奮しました。初めて僕が発見して、あ、これは与那国の絶対宝になるからシークレットにしようということで、スタッフにもシークレットさせたんです。
14. Hestellen Lights, Norway. In the quiet Hestellen Valley of Norway, the night sky has, for decades, been the stage for one of Europe's strangest light phenomena. Glowing orbs and flashes of light have been seen appearing over the valley in different colors and forms, sometimes hovering in place, other times moving in ways that seem deeply unnatural to those watching from below. The sightings became so persistent that researchers established long-term observation projects to study them. Instruments have captured unusual light activity, and scientists have proposed explanations involving ionized gases, plasma-like behavior, and the valley's unique geology. But no single theory has fully closed the case. And that is what makes the Hestellen lights so unsettling. This is not just folklore or rumor, but a phenomenon serious enough to be studied, and strange enough to remain unresolved.
Å, fy fader! Jeg filmer det! Jeg har det på tape! Jeg har det her! Å, dæven!
15. The Sargasso Sea, Atlantic Ocean. For our final location, we travel to the only sea on the world map that has no coastlines. Located in the northern Atlantic Ocean, it is bordered on all sides not by land, but by massive, fast-moving ocean currents. The water in the Sargasso Sea is terrifyingly calm, unnaturally warm, and incredibly deep blue. Its surface is covered in massive amounts of thick, floating seaweed. Even more incredibly, eels from North America and Europe travel thousands of miles to this exact sea to breed, yet scientists have never once caught a single adult eel spawning here. The Sargasso Sea is the ultimate location where ocean geography becomes pure magic.
Very special place, and it's on the list of places to be protected because it's so unique in terms of the seaweed floating around, but also the fish and invertebrate and birds and mammals and all kinds of life forms associated with that seaweed.
Which of these 15 places seems the most unreal to you? Do you think the Yonaguni Monument was built by an advanced ancient civilization? Or that the Taushum is a hidden piece of technology? Let me know your theories in the comments. Making videos like this takes a huge amount of research, writing, and fact-checking. So if you enjoyed it and want to support the work, hitting subscribe would really mean a lot. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.